We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including lots of NHL offseason trade talk, and focus today on teams like the Montreal Canadiens, the Pittsburgh Penguins, as well as the Boston Bruins. Plus, we have a signing in Buffalo. We have one more arbitration case that is getting close with the Maple Leafs and Nick Robertson. We also have an update on a potential contract extension for Connor Bedard in Chicago. What is the likelihood we see that before the season starts? And one of the top UFAs, Jerard Roslovic. We have a better idea what he's looking for and what might be holding things up on him getting a contract. We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss in today's video. Let's kick things off first with news out of Buffalo today. The Buffalo Sabres had another restricted free agent signing. I know actually I made a mistake the other day saying that the Sabres were done with all of their RFA business when in fact Levi's contract was not done here as of yet. But Levi has now signed. It's a pretty team-friendly deal, but of course Levi has not yet established himself as a full-time NHL goaltender. That very well could happen this year. We'll see. Certainly the Sabres are in a situation where Levi is not really going to be under pressure to do that, but certainly I think they'd like to be able to see him at least give them some more good games this year. And I would hope by the year after they would want him to be in a position where they're comfortable with him being in the NHL full-time, possibly even being the starter. We'll see. But the 2-year contract only has a value of $812,500 per season. So that's a pretty reasonable contract considering the limited amount of NHL success he has had so far. But he did have a really good season playing mostly in Rochester last year. Did get some NHL action, but his AHL numbers were really good. So that's hopefully something for Levi to build upon here. The 23-year-old RFA goaltender is still going to be a restricted free agent when this new contract expires, except at that point he will have arbitration rights and be age 25. Levi, for right now, is still waivers exempt as well. So they can go into the season if they want Levi to be that number 3 guy. They don't have to worry about losing him on waivers. They could send him to the minors if they need to, if that's how they're going to proceed. At a training camp, don't have to worry about it too much. However, he could lose his waivers eligibility status during the season, depending on how things go. Essentially, he could be waivers exempt for the entire year unless he plays 21 NHL games. That's how many more games he needs to have on his resume before that exempt status goes away. So I guess we will just wait and see. I would think that the Sabres will be keeping that in mind, of course, as well. They want him to develop. They want him to be progressing. But at the same time, they want to win hockey games. And obviously, injuries play a role in everything here as well. So it's kind of hard to say exactly how the year goes. But if he gets called up and has to play an extended stretch and plays 21 games, then they won't be able to send him back to the minors without going through waivers, and that's not going to happen. He would get claimed, there's no doubt. As much as he may not have a ton of NHL success on his resume just yet, he's still considered a pretty promising young goaltender, and other teams would snag him for that opportunity for free on the waiver wire, there's no doubt. So we'll have to see how the season goes for Levi. It's going to be an interesting year for sure. I know the Sabres, they've made a few moves, but largely the same team coming back. So be curious to see what else Buffalo might do now that their RFA business is kind of taken care of here. Are we going to see some contract extensions? Are we going to see some more roster maneuvers with some trades? It's going to be kind of curious here because Kevin Adams hasn't really done a lot to change things up considering the way things went last year. Now, of course, I mentioned as well, speaking of restricted free agents, we're down to one arbitration case remaining, and they may or may not end up actually having the case. We'll have to wait and see. But the Toronto Maple Leafs and forward Nick Robertson would be expected to submit their contract numbers tomorrow. Usually 48 hours ahead of the hearing is when those numbers have to be submitted. Tomorrow's August 1st. The hearing is scheduled for August the 3rd, so we should find out sometime, probably tomorrow in the afternoon, I would suspect, at least by the afternoon, what those numbers are. And of course, keep in mind, just like we saw with Sandberg and Winnipeg, there could be a variance of opinions there. Like, we might find out that there's a $1 million gap or $2 million gap or something like that. I would suspect not going to be as huge. With Robertson and the Leafs, I would think a big part of the argument here is going to be whether or not it's a one-way contract, and if it is a two-way, what the bigger salary that he's going to be looking for the AHL side of the deal. So it's going to be a little different in this case, but we should find out tomorrow what each side is willing to propose heading into the arbitration hearing, unless they just announce a signing and have it done with tomorrow. But that is news we should get tomorrow. Now, on the rumor mill front, we've got a variety of things I'm going to take a look at. We'll start with a couple of free agents contract updates between some UFA and then potential pending RFA extension here. So we'll start with Jack Roslovic, who is one of the more interesting names that still remains out there on the free agent market going into August 1st now without a contract for next year. It seems like every year there's a few players that kind of surprise you that they got through this far in free agency and don't have a deal yet. I know according to Cam Robinson, who's mostly a prospect person and more of a draft guru kind of guy, obviously has a few sources around the league, well connected as well. He says that the intel he has on Roslovic is that he's looking for a 3-year contract. Now, to me, that's probably the holdup here. I know a team like Vancouver is a team that Roslovic has been in contact with. I don't know if it's fair to say the most, but they've been one of the main teams linked to him for an extended time. We know they probably want to add another forward, ideally somebody who can play center. Roslovic can do that, but I also think that they're exploring the trade market. They might want to move out a contract before they make a signing. And, I think they're probably not quite comfortable with a 3-year term. For a guy like Roslovic, who has bounced around a lot, at the same time, he's had some productive times too. So I can see why teams, though, might be a little shy and a little leery to give him more term than a year, or maybe 2 is pushing it, but 3 is probably a hard stop for a lot of teams. Now, he had also been linked to Toronto. Besides Vancouver, I think there was maybe New York Rangers, I think, at some point were rumored to have been speaking to him. And we know that I think some of the other teams that were, obviously that are still rebuilding or have been linked to him as well, being a potential option to bring in as a veteran guy. But so far, nothing for Roslovic. So the 3-year part is probably what's holding things up. Unless he changes his stance and is willing to accept a shorter deal, which I know at some point he's likely going to have to, unless the team caves, which I just don't see it happening at this point. I think right now we know there's probably 8 to 10 teams that are, at the very least, maybe more than that are not quite happy with how their offseason has gone and are still looking to make moves. But the trade market we keep hearing from NHL insiders that there's going to be another market open up here probably in August, and then we're going to see a flurry of activity, and some of these free agents are going to find homes. Some of them are going to have to probably accept tryouts and things like that, but ultimately I think teams are being picky right now. They're saying, well, you know what, if that's our best option to sign Jack Roslovic, I'm willing to wait a few more weeks and see if I can't find a trade and maybe see if I can't find something I like better. I think that's kind of where things are at with a lot of these teams, but I think that's what's holding it up for him. Now, Connor Bedard, of course, former first overall pick just a couple years back, has had pretty good success in Chicago. I think some people are, sometimes give him a hard time, and the fact that he hasn't put up like a 100-point season or something yet, and just think he's maybe not as good as he was hyped up to be. But you got to remember, he's still really, really young. And look at a lot of these first overall picks that have gone on to become superstars. He's kind of done as well as them or better in his first couple of years. And he's on a really bad team. But the big question around Bedard this summer is, would he sign a contract extension? He's through 2 out of 3 years on his ELC, which means as of July 1st, he's now entered the final year of his contract as a rookie, which means he can now sign his next contract through an extension with Chicago if he chose to do that and they were willing to, obviously come to terms on an agreement. Well, Frank Saravalli, NHL insider, through Bleacher Report recently just was asked this question if he sees this being a possibility, and he says not likely. He doesn't think there's a good chance at all that Connor Bedard signs an extension with the Blackhawks before the season starts. I would agree with him. I don't think we're going to see that happen either. If I'm Connor Bedard, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. If I'm the Blackhawks, I probably think it makes more sense for the team than the player, because as we all know and we've seen and I've said numerous times, as time goes on, these players often get better and the price is only going to likely go up more often than it's ever going to stay the same or go down. So, if I'm Chicago, I'm probably interested. I think I've seen enough from Bedard to know that he's going to be a really, really good NHL player. He's going to be a top-line contributor for this team if he signs and stays for a long time. So I probably would be interested in getting ahead of that, especially where this is going to be the last summer of 8-year contracts, since that will change with next year's new CBA kicking in next summer. But from the player's perspective, he's had good seasons, but he hasn't really completely popped off and broken through to what he's going to become yet. And there's, as time goes on and he gets better and the team gets better, there's a better chance of that happening. So personally, I think it's in his best interest to wait. So of course, like as Sarah Valley said though in his post, he says basically that that there's no issue when it comes to salary cap space. So there's really the only thing here is do they want to do it, right? There's nothing holding back either side, except that, like he said, he doesn't think it makes a lot of sense for Bedard to do that, considering how bad the Blackhawks have been. And I don't know that we have a lot of hope that they're going to make a lot of progress this year. I know Connor Bedard is certainly hoping so. If you watch this young man play hockey, and I know I've watched him a lot when he was in junior, both through the Regina Pats, through his time with Hockey Canada at the World Juniors and international tournaments. This kid has been phenomenal, and he absolutely loves to win. And I think this losing the last couple of years has kind of sucked the life out of him to some degree. It's been a major adjustment, and as you can imagine, for a lot of these young players coming into the NHL, being drafted highly by a team obviously that was low in the standings for a reason, because they were going through a rebuild. They were bad teams. It can be a lot of pressure for them to be the guy that helps turn things around. And obviously we know it's a team sport, so it takes a lot more than one guy to do that anyway. And it can be a big deal. Like, these guys are used to winning their whole lives, and to come into a team in the NHL, a 32-team league where, it's really hard to win, and it takes a while to get there through these rebuilds. The losing can be hard on the head, and it can be tough mentally to go through all that. So we've seen Bedard not really having a lot of fun the past couple of years. So I think if I'm him, you also want to hold off and see, okay, is this team going to be better? Am I comfortable with the direction of this team before I sign a big deal, and kind of go from there? Plus, I'd want to bet on myself that I haven't been anywhere near my ceiling yet. And each year, the odds are going to increase that you're going to put up your production and then put up your value, right? Even then, he still might opt to sign a bridge deal and continue to hope that he kind of pops off here early. Look at Nate McKinnon. He was a little bit slower starting to his career as well. A couple of years in, like, okay, he's a good player, but will he be a star, top of the league kind of guy? And there were some question marks around that early on. Then he signed, I think it was 6x6. And at the time, some people were like, ooh, that's a little bit much. He hasn't really accomplished a ton yet to get that. But, of course, it's all based on projections on where he's going to be down the road. And then within no time, he was outperforming that by huge leaps and bounds here. And it was a best contract in the league for the last 3-4 years of it, right? So, he probably has some regrets for signing too long, too quickly. And then he probably left a lot of money on the table because of that. Now he's getting paid quite handsomely. I'm sure he's not too worried about it. He's done quite well for himself. But all in all, you got to look at what's the best strategy. So from Bedard's perspective, he doesn't think we're going to see that. And I agree. I don't think it's the likely scenario. He also was commenting on Patrick Laine in Montreal. I know going into this offseason, I talked about Laine, not so much lately, but early in the offseason before we got to the draft and free agency, I kind of wondered about the future of Laine in Montreal. I know he had a hot start. I know he started the year injured. Then he came on, and he was basically a power play merchant there, just kind of scoring at will with that wicked shot of his. So he got his Mojo going with a shot. Like I said, he was taking advantage largely on the power play, but still, it doesn't matter. He was being productive, and he was scoring at a really good clip. So Montreal was quite pleased with that. But then things kind of did level off. You knew it was going to, right? And then throughout the year, especially after getting Ivan Demidov into the mix, and then you've seen towards the end of the year, you're like, well, can they both be second-line players? Because you got obviously a top line of Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky, which have worked well together. And okay, you're like, okay, can we leave them there? Can we make a second line? Our next best wingers now are Demidov, Line A. They had Newhook in the middle. And we know they're still looking for a number 2 center. Is that going to be Kirby Dach? We don't know, right? So there's just a bunch of question marks. And, the next question, and then if they bring in Boldu as well, right, through trade, and, he's probably, with Line A there, he's probably going to be on the third, like Boldu in the third line. But he could be a future second liner if he continues to progress. He's still quite young too, right? So you just, you're looking for that mix, and where does he fit long term? That's why I did wonder if there's a possibility they could opt for a swap and move Line A out. But Sarah Valley says on this Line A talk, because he was asked this question to answer with the Bleacher Report, do you think that there's any chance Line A is going to get moved? And he says, between now and the beginning of the season, I don't think so. I think it's probably unlikely. They're probably going to go into the season with Line A in Montreal, see how the season starts, see how his production is, and then make a decision from there, because he's also going to be, entering the last year of his contract, right? So do you extend him? Do you kind of wait and see where it goes? I mean, I would probably wait and see myself, just because, like I said, I still think he had a good clip there with the Habs last year, but I would want to be sure I know where he fits in the lineup long term before committing another big extension to him. So it seems like that's unlikely going to happen throughout the next little while here. But, like I said, is he and Demidov going to find that chemistry? Now, I know a lot of Habs players have been skating together in Montreal early in this offseason. A bunch of them I know got together, obviously, for Suzuki's wedding. But even before that, a lot of them were skating and trading together in Montreal, which is great to see. And it seems like, from what I've seen a lot of clips, it seems like Line A and Demidov have been trying to skate together a lot and find some chemistry. So they probably expect to have an opportunity to play together next year, which is fair to say. So, who's the number 2 center long-term in Montreal? It's a big question. What's Line A's future? Is there any chance Demidov goes to the top line? Do they move Slafkovsky down? There's a bunch of questions in this. I think Montreal is going to be a very interesting team to watch next year. I think they're going to be primed and poised to continue improving on what they started last year. But, where does all these players fit? That's the question mark. And, for a while there, Line A had more speculation about his future. But right now, it seems like it's going to be wait and see before they make any long-term decisions in that front. Sarah Valley also was talking about the Boston Bruins. He was asked about Pavel Zacha. There's been a lot of speculation around Zacha. His name has been out there in the rumor mill. A lot of insiders have linked him to being available. Sarah Valley says that from what he's heard, that the Bruins would definitely consider a Zacha trade. But, of course, the right offer has to come along, and so far he doesn't believe that's happened. The Canucks were another team, like I said, linked to Roslovic, but they have also been linked to Zacha as well. And I can see a scenario where, depending on the asking price there, they might find that to be the better move. Now, no given here that the Bruins move Zacha. They don't have to. But I think there is belief that the Bruins have had enough conversations around him throughout the summer that if they get the right offer, he will find himself on the move before training camp starts or early in the season. But another player to keep an eye on for sure. And there's also a new article in The Athletic from Josh Yohe, talk about the Penguins beat writer. A couple of things. One on ownership, because we've heard a lot of tidbits here and there on Muriel Lemieux wanting to get the Penguins back. After, of course, selling the Fenway Group just a couple of years back here. The group with Muriel Lemieux and his former partner, Ron Burkle, according to the article here, it says that he's got sources that say that Lemieux's group has no interest in being a minority ownership partner. So they for sure are interested in getting the team back and being owners again, but they don't want to do it just as a small stake. It's all or nothing. Now, I don't know what prompted the change. Obviously, it hasn't been that long since they sold. It's going to cost them a good amount more than what they sold for to get it back, so I'm not sure how this is all going to work. We haven't heard anything from Fenway Sports Group to suggest they definitely want to sell. All the rumors at the time were kind of throwing cold water on at the time, that saying that they did say that they were looking for a minority partner, but that was it. So I don't know, but according to the article here, they definitely are interested and they want a majority stake, not a minority. So we'll see. He also says in his article that he feels there's a really good likelihood that we will see at least one, if not multiple, big trades involving the Penguins before the beginning of training camp. That Kyle Dubas, of course, has fully committed to doing this rebuild with Pittsburgh. And obviously, we've heard about the usual suspects that we've talked about here on occasion with Erik Karlsson, Rickard Rakell, Brian Rust, that at least one or two of those guys will be dealt before the season gets underway. But so far, Dubas just hasn't had the offers that we need to see to make something happen. I know Sarah Valley also touched on Karlsson, saying that he believes that the main team that have the best chance of pulling it off would be Carolina. In yesterday's video, we talked about an article as well, looking at what they believe, the author from I think it was the Hockey News, looked at 4 trades for Erik Karlsson, Carolina being one of them, along with, I think it was Dallas, Detroit, and Ottawa. And I said, too, I think Carolina makes the most sense. They have the best cap situation amongst the teams that have been linked to him. They have some interesting players they could consider moving, both on the prospect front and on the roster side. So, again, I think that's the most likely scenario. But, again, we don't know, right? There's obviously not an easy thing to do. So we will see where it goes. But according to this article in The Athletic, they definitely still expect a couple of big Penguins trades. So there's bound to be lots of speculation around these players continuing here over the next number of weeks before that finally comes to be. So let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.